Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats as the plenary session is about to commence. Please take your seats as the plenary session is about to commence. We'd also ask that you make note of the nearest emergency exit and please switch your phones to silent. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we can take the last of our seats, please. Well, we got here, the beginning of the last session of what have been 2 wonderful previous days plus today. It's been a big event. I think people from anywhere and everywhere in the world have met people they didn't know before, and that's an important part of what the Congress brings. In this final session, we look at things slightly differently. We've had many references over the past 2 days to agriculture being part of the solution for the future, the solution for many different things at the same time. And in looking into the future, it's always important to look towards kind of that blue sky thinking. And the first presenter is a man that has traveled extensively in the world, seen many different things, started not from Ireland, but from the other end of the southern hemisphere, some part of the other end of the southern hemisphere, which he can tell you about if he wishes. And he has come, as he told me a few minutes ago, to settle here in Ireland in the sunshine. So he's working from here. So his title, Planet of Plenty. And, you know, the more we listen to what has been said for the last 2 days, the more we have to recognize that to be the case. And the title of the paper is Making Agriculture the Solution to the Problem, something that, again, we've heard over and over again. So can you welcome to the stage, please, Robert Walker, who is working and operating out of the Alltech European Bioscience Centre here in Dublin. Robert.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yes, from South Africa via the UK, via Ireland, via Kentucky, via Italy, and now back in Ireland because of the weather, as you said. It's great. Look at it outside today. Today, I want to be presenting on our vision for a planet of plenty, our vision for making agriculture part of the solution, whereas we are often viewed as part of the problem. Why agriculture? Because agriculture is the only industry that can not only mitigate, but actually reverse some of the challenges that we've got in our industry. Google has this sort of auto complete function, which is based on who's been searching for what before. And if you type in there agriculture causes, you get this depressing list of deforestation, climate change, water pollution, soil erosion, water scarcity, air pollution. It's terrible. It's damning. Is this really what the world thinks of us? Is this really what agriculture is to the rest of the world? We're being measured by people who don't necessarily have the scientific background or the information. We're being judged by people who don't necessarily understand what it is we do, or who themselves are being influenced. And we're allowing other people to actually tell our story. If you go online, there's so much information. What do you look at? I have a graph up here from Our World in Data. I chose Our World in Data because this is a group out of Oxford who seem to be the reference point for most of the big groups, such as the BBC and other, so let's say, more reputable outlets. But you know, the rhetoric is always very similar, and this is the story. You've got greenhouse gases, 26%. Land use, agriculture is responsible for 50% of all land use. Fresh water use, 70%. Eutrophication, pollution of our waterways, 78%. And loss of biodiversity, a whopping 94%. It's damning, as I said. If you zoom in a little bit and look just at the greenhouse gases, it's not like any one part of agriculture escapes. You've got everything from land use, crop production, animal production, and even supply chain. So almost all of us in this room are responsible for this. But actually, the elephant in the room for me is this big 74%. Maybe I'm reading the wrong media, but I don't often see that much proportionally about fossil fuel use. And for me, I think that, that the story is perhaps a little bit biased. I think it is important that we get factful. I think that this book here is a great read for any of you who are thinking of changing the way in which you view numbers and science. This book talks about how we need to be looking at fact, figures, science, in order to get rid of our own biases. And it's confusing. It's confusing for consumers. In fact, it's confusing for me when I try and explain to my teenage sons what all of this means and how it all works. What agriculture is responsible for and what it's not. It just is difficult. And in that confusion, you've got consumers creating their own brands, creating their own stories, and very often, actually, that's where the fertile ground is. If we were more able to connect with those consumers, if we were more able to have direct conversations, maybe we're going to be more able to better position our products. And so the businesses of the future, the businesses that are going to thrive, are the ones that are going to be able to better tap into those exciting niche markets that are emerging. What else is happening? Our next speaker is much more capable than me of speaking about this topic, but the Green Deal is absolutely going to change agriculture. Every country seems to have one. The US, China, India, all of the big ones. The US, very broad and vague, but some of the other countries, like China, seem to be actually on track, wanting to have peak CO2 production in 2030, and actually investing a lot into new initiatives such as carbon trading. India investing a lot of money, and for me, as a European or based here in Europe, the Green Deal for me is the big one. For me, the important part of the Green Deal is that it's seen by Europe as a growth strategy. The green economy is actually a good news story. It's what Europe believes is going to be the fuel for economic growth in the future. And so the Green Deal for us is now. It is making a lot of progress, and so I think there have been something like 14 major initiatives in the last couple of years. And there are going to be some profound changes to consumers, to food, and of course to your businesses. And I think you need to take note of that. The consolidation that we're going to see, the Green Deal that we're going to see is going to be more easily navigated by businesses that are ready for it, businesses that are maybe more consolidated, ones that can navigate some of the challenges that are going to be thrown up by governments and consumers. What else is happening? Ag tech. Not a day goes by that you don't hear about ag tech. Recently, 40% year-on-year growth. The amount of money being invested in ag tech is just staggering. And the number of companies or startups out there is just massive. Within our business, we have an accelerator called the Pierce Lyons Cultivator. And when we started 5 years ago, most of those ag tech startups would have been very much around robotics, drones, kind of simple to understand solutions. Over time, more during COVID, it shifted more towards supply chain, so that blockchain type stuff. More recently, though, what we're seeing this year and last year is more companies that are coming in from outside. So agri-food finance, agri-food medicine, so foods that actually do good. Agri-food real estate. So, for example, you could be buying farms based on the the ability of a 1 square meter or every square meter of land to be productive. So the microbiome measurement actually becomes important from a real estate perspective. And so things are changing, and perhaps industries outside of our agricultural or agri-food business see more opportunity in our business than we ourselves are seeing. AgTech promises this connection across the entire supply chain and an ability to engage with all of the players in the supply chain. And for me, what I think AgTech is going to be doing is shrinking that supply chain. It's not going to be this static relationship between the various players in the supply chain, but more of a close relationship where there's more transparency and there's more collaboration across that supply chain. What else has changed our world? Pandemics. I'm not only talking about COVID, that's the obvious one, of course, the thing that shaped so much of our lives, but also some of the disease outbreaks that we've had prior to this. Things like SARS, things like PSA in kiwi fruit, greening disease in citrus. These kinds of things are much more easy to navigate by businesses that have protocols in place and have an ability to anticipate some of these. And we're getting more and more disease outbreaks every day. Another big influencer is geopolitics, probably kicked off a while back by Donald Trump and his trade wars, but more recently gaining steam with Brexit, with conflict in the Ukraine. COVID possibly played a big role there, also in geopolitics. Businesses that are more geographically diverse, with more of a global outlook that is more diversified, possibly more consolidated. These are going to be the businesses that are going to flourish and the businesses that are going to win in the future. And so all of these things, the consumer sentiment, the geopolitics, pandemics, ag tech, all of these things, for me, boil down actually to one big trend. And that big trend is consolidation. We've seen it for many years, but man, it's getting quicker and quicker every year. Consolidation is also not what it used to be. It used to be that consolidation would be about, maybe a farm consolidating upstream or downstream from it with its suppliers or maybe with the processor. It could be the processor maybe buying a farm or processor getting into retail. It's changed. It's changed because of ag tech. Because digitally, companies can now be virtually consolidated. Virtually consolidated, meaning if your businesses are not involved with the businesses upstream or downstream, you are at a significant disadvantage. Or looked at from another perspective, there's a huge advantage to being connected to the other partners in the supply chain. And that leverage is what is going to make all the difference in the future. So we've got a lot of change. Change, opportunity. Our businesses need to change to take advantage of it. In the past, when we've thought about change, we've mostly thought about innovation. And when we talk about innovation, the sort of general idea is that we're going to be innovating new products. It's a little bit different now. We've got so many, with ag tech and so many new areas, it's not only about inventing new products, it's also about finding new business models. You can't just take ag tech and stick that onto your business, because ag tech, for example, is going to profoundly change the way you do your business. You need to think about the people you employ. You need to think about what services you give. You need to think about how you charge, what your monetization model is. So as we innovate in this space, we actually need to think probably more importantly about innovating our business model than innovating the actual products that we sell. Because we're no longer just selling product, we're selling product plus service, and it's all powered by data, and it's all linked to the players upstream and downstream from us. And never before, I think, well, certainly not in the last 10 years, has there been as much opportunity as there is now. I could throw up, 100 opportunities. But things like biogas, we've just turned off the taps to Russia, or turning off the taps, we can open biogas taps. Certification models like carbon certification, sequestration of carbon, carbon trading. What better place to do it than in our soils? The promise of what biotechnology can deliver, from better plant protection to more efficient production. More efficient production techniques, management. There's so many things that we have at our disposal today. It is a very, very exciting time to be in agriculture and in food production. And so I want to tell you a story that sort of illustrates a lot of this. It's a story of our own journey, and it's a story that starts here in Ireland 40 years ago. This is the story of an Irishman who had finished his PhD in brewing. He liked to say that he was the first person in the world to get a PhD in brewing beer. And he did that over in Birmingham. He then took his two young children and wife over to Kentucky during that ethanol boom of the late 70s. Ethanol boom turned to ethanol bust. And so he's over there in Kentucky, and he's thinking back to his PhD, because he's a scientist and he had some really good ideas come out of his PhD. And so he started brewing up yeast during the week and in his garage, as you do in America. Seems all big businesses come out of garages. And then during the weekends, he'd go out and he'd sell this yeast to dairy cows, to farmers, to improve dairy cow rumination. And on the success of that, he borrowed $10,000 from his mum, starts this business, and so a success is born. But it wasn't only about that initial PhD. It wasn't only about that initial product. That PhD spawned a number of products in which he was first to market. So things like live yeast, prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics. One of the first movers in the chelated mineral space. So all of this set the business up. But what differentiated it was that it was all natural. And at that time in America, it was very unusual to be selling natural products. He was seen as a bit of a quack. It was highly unusual. It's not enough to just be a scientist, though. And what I want to highlight about this story is that this man was first and foremost a scientist. But what he layered on top of that, and I think what's important as you think about your own businesses, is some of the ways of getting to market in the first place. It's not enough just to have the idea. You need to underpin it with something. And these values that I have on the screen here are the values that underpin our business. It's the values of an entrepreneurial business, quite honestly. It's this idea of constantly being curious and seeing what other areas you can get involved with. It's this idea of moving very, very quickly, jumping to the new spaces. Our leader always used to say, the opportunity of a lifetime, but only in the lifetime of the opportunity. It's also about being able to tell the story, because when you're selling something that is technical, people glaze over. It's important to be able to engage with your audience so that they actually understand what it is that you're selling, what you're trying to achieve. Selling science is about telling stories. It's also about making friends so that you can engage with people on a one-on-one basis. And the only way you do that is by being fun, being professional, and making sure that you have this passion and excellence at every stage. Another point on the board there is wear the pin. I've got the pin here, and what that means is Dr. Pierce Lyons trained his team very well to go out there and be as ambassadors. So people like me, people like Cathal over there in the audience, and there's a few of my colleagues here, who wear the pin, wear this attitude, and go out there and colonize, I guess, and spread the word. And that's another important point about how you get your message out. It's about multiplying your effort. You can't do it alone. And finally, make a difference. It is all about having a bigger vision. You need to have a rallying point for your own people and for society, something that everyone's wanting to get behind. And certainly that was the case. And so some examples, we were the first in 2008 to set up a nutrigenomics center to look at the effect of nutrients on genes. We invested a lot of money back into science, with literally thousands of published papers to prove the science. We adapted a lot of the products and that initial science into our crop science division. Our crop science division, which is based on microbial technologies, all natural, looking at plant nutrition, plant performance, and plant protection. We also went out to 128 countries today, 128 countries, and that's part of this expansion, getting out there, getting the message out there, and that's a brave step. It's about engaging with customers. We now have more than 40,000 customers around the world, and they are our ambassadors, they're our friends, and we continue engaging with them. So that base is the base that allows us to expand in the future. And so from that humble beginning 40 years ago, we now have 5,000 colleagues around the world. So what is our vision of the future? We believe there are two crises. The one is human health and nutrition crisis, and the other one is an environmental crisis. And if you think about all of the things I've said, we have had that as our mission really from the very beginning. This purpose and the idea of having a purpose has always been at the heart of this startup. When we started in the early 80s, our philosophy was agriculture, consumer, and environment. Producing products that improve agricultural efficiency, producing products that ultimately the consumer wants to eat, and finally, products that are kind to the environment. We've updated that philosophy more recently to this new one, working together for a planet of plenty. And what that means is that it's not only about having enough food, it's actually also about having better food. So food that is higher in value, food that is more sustainable. Agriculture does have the greatest potential to positively shape the future of our planet. But how do we get that message out? We believe there are three pillars. And one of the things that we'd like you to do is go out there and try and live these three pillars. First of all, there's the science. How do we underpin the story of our industry with science and make it factful? Secondly, what is sustainability? Sustainability is not just about climate. It's not just about ecological. It's also about financial sustainability. It's also about societal and community sustainability. And finally, it sounds soft, but storytelling. Unless you give a face to these facts and figures, unless you give a face to sustainability in terms of finances, in terms of community, it means nothing. And so storytelling is possibly the most important part of this mission of bringing a planet of plenty to life. And so we do have this vision for a world of abundance. And we're going to power that with new technologies, improved farm management, and new business models. But most importantly, it's powered by partnerships. And so our ask today is that you think about partnering with businesses like ourselves, businesses that you've met here today, to revitalize the soil, to improve efficiency on farm, to ensure that local communities are thriving, to ensure that we have nutrition for all, and to ensure that we are replenishing. And I mean replenishing, not just mitigating, I mean replenishing our planet, because agriculture, again, is the only industry that can reverse some of the challenges and problems that we've got. Us in agriculture work in a very noble business. It's a noble purpose, and we can be proud of that. The late Pierce Lyons, the boss I spoke so emotively about, used to say that the tragedy of life is having a goal that you achieve. He wants us to have goals that are audacious, that are big, goals that we can step up to and try and achieve so that we achieve something bigger. We should all strive to be the most relevant businesses in sustainability in agri-food. And so with that, I'd like to invite you all to please join us on this mission of working together for a planet of plenty. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, for that far-reaching and far-seeing presentation. And I think that the words you put up close to the end, which were the goals set by Pierce Lyons, certainly come as a challenge and an ongoing challenge to us all to want to do more. And I guess if we cast our minds back to yesterday morning, our first speaker yesterday morning, when Chris Cook came on the stage and basically implored us to use what we have to the maximum before we want to try and demand that we have other things that we should be given to do it. I think there's certainly a challenge there for us all. Okay, we've moved to the point of having our final plenary speaker and our final presentation for the conference. Tom Arnold is I suppose, the only one of the speakers that I've seen or had up here that I will have known for some time. He's on your programme as the Irish government's special envoy on food systems, but for those of us that know him, he's been a lot more than that to societies, both here in Ireland and in many other parts of the world. He is a potato ambassador by virtue of his experience, I'm guessing, in many other parts of the world. Today he's down to speak about the contribution of the potato to the development goals, sustainability development goals and climate action, but he is kind of hinting to me that might not be what he's going to talk about. Tom, over to you, please.
You gave the game away already. Well, Andy, thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be the final speaker at this really important event. This is what I was due to talk about, the contribution of the potato to the SDGs and climate action. But on the first morning, we had the FAO Director General, who basically said everything that needed to be said about this topic. So I saw no reason then to repeat or try to compete with the FAO Director General. So instead, I thought I'd talk about this. The potato in Irish society, lessons over a lifetime. That means my lifetime. And doing so here to draw on and talk about the Irish experience over that same period. So we're not presenting, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the Irish model of development is one that can be picked up and used by any other country. Every country has its own circumstances. But what I want to talk about at least will, I think, enable an understanding about how Ireland has developed over this long period. And it is a fact that this country has made remarkable progress in living standards, in changing mindsets over that time. So I want to, at the very end, come back to this, to draw some lessons together, but also implicitly maybe challenge other countries to ask whether some of the lessons that we in Ireland have learned over this period might be relevant to themselves, to their own countries. And in particular, I think that question is relevant to many of my African friends. So these are the 5 things that I want to talk about, and which I will draw some conclusions from. They look simple and maybe obvious and maybe mundane, but I think they're all important. Change takes time. Change requires investment in your people. It requires investment in your institutions. I think it's important the private sector is encouraged, and finally, some means to connect the local to the global. So I felt, in the last presentation of the conference, you didn't probably want to see another set of slides or another set of statistics or graphs. So I'm going to mix it up a bit. So we'll have a poem shortly by one of Ireland's greatest poets, Patrick Kavanagh. And we'll have a song by one of Ireland's greatest singers, Luke Kelly. So just for the next couple of slides, I want you to just sit back and enjoy this. And to illustrate this notion of change takes time, I want to talk about these things. And I want to start with the 3rd bullet point, a story about an organization which started out in North County Dublin in the late 1960s, essentially a cooperative called North Dublin Growers. And it had ups and downs. It had, it succeeded for a while, then it didn't succeed, etc., etc. And just an important lesson to this, from this, that we can refer to the great Samuel Beckett, the Irish writer. This is a phrase, this is what he wrote: ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. So if you're looking at a long-term process of development, that has to be built into it. But then I want to go and show you a photograph of somebody standing in a potato field 60 years ago. And I want to talk and read Patrick Kavanagh's poem, Spraying the Potatoes. I come from a family of 8, and we grew up, and the main crop on our farm was potatoes. So every one of the 8 children spent much of their summer picking potatoes. I was the eldest, and this person in the middle of this lovely potato field was the youngest. Brian, my brother. Would you stand up? He didn't know this was coming. But it's just to illustrate, what a difference 60 years makes. And now I want to move on to the poem by Patrick Kavanagh. This will all come into shape in a few moments. I mean, it's not just random stories about different people, whether Brian, my brother, Paddy Kavanagh, or Luke Kelly. Spraying the Potatoes by Patrick Kavanagh. The barrels of blue potato spray stood on a headland of July, beside an orchard wall where roses were young girls hanging from the sky. The flocks of green potato stalks were blossom spread for sudden flight, the cares pinks in a frivoled blue, the Aran banners wearing white. And over that potato field, a lazy veil of woven sun, dandelions growing on headlands, showing their unloved hearts to everyone. And I was there with a knapsack sprayer, on the barrel's edge poised. A wasp was floating, dead on a sunken briar leaf, over a copper-poisoned ocean. The axle roll of a rut-locked cart broke the burnt stick of noon in two. An old man came through a cornfield, remembering his youth and some Ruth he knew. He turned my way. God further the work. He echoed an ancient farming prayer. I thanked him. He eyed his potato drills. He said, "You are bound to have good ones there." We talked, and our talk was a theme of kings, a theme for strings. He hunkered down in the shade of the orchard wall. "O roses, the old man dies in the young girl's frown." And poet lost to potato fields, remembering the lime and copper smell of the spraying barrels, he is not lost, or till blossom stalks cannot weave a smell. Well, Patrick Kavanagh was indeed lost to potato fields. He left his native County Monaghan in 1943 and came to Dublin, where he lived for the rest of his life, just down the road here in Pembroke Road. He was a famously awkward character, difficult person. But as he changed his poetic output, I mean, one of his most famous poems was a poem called On Raglan Road. And here to sing it for us, and I want you to enjoy this, is one of our greatest singers, Luke Kelly.
On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rule. I saw the danger and I passed along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November, we trip lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the worth of passion's pledge, the Queen of Hearts still making cards, and I not making hay. Oh, I loved too much, and by such is happiness thrown away. I gave her gifts of the mind, I gave her the secret sign that's known to the artists who have known the true gods of sound and stone, and word and tint without stint. I gave her poems to say with her own name there, and her own dark hair like clouds on a quiet street where old ghosts meet. I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly. My reason must allow that I had loved not as I should, a creature made of clay. When the angels the clay he'd lose his wings at the dawn of day.
I hope you enjoyed that. Because that poem is about an unrequited love between Patrick Kavanagh and a woman called Hilda Moriarty. Now, the fact that it was unrequited wasn't terribly surprising because he was a lot older than she was. He was a difficult character, and he wasn't particularly known for his personal hygiene. But there was something between them. They talked, you know, the poem says, I gave her words, and I gave her poets to say. But Hilda Moriarty married Donogh O'Malley, who became Minister for Education. And in 1966, Donogh O'Malley introduced free secondary education in this country. And this is where we get back to my narrative, that education and the provision of skills are the foundation stone of Irish economic development over subsequent decades. And then we talk about institutions, and we've had some little connection with institutions in the course of these couple of days. But this is just one thing I want to just mention along the way, that, I mean, most countries have cooperative movements of some kind or other. Ireland's cooperative movement, the Irish Cooperative Organisation Society, started in 1926. In fact, you could argue it started way further, even further back. But then in 1944, an organisation called Mochran and Ferma was established for a young farmers' organisation, hugely important in terms of what it did for rural youth. And in 1971, I recall that ICOS was developing a scheme to train Mochra members to serve on co-op boards. These are other institutions we've connected with in the past couple of days. Frank O'Mara, who chaired the opening session with the DG director, with FAO DG, is the current head of Teagasc. But Teagasc emerged out of an earlier set of institutions. And Forest Tuluntish, the Agricultural Research Institute, set up in 1958 under the Marshall Plan. The Oak Park Research Station, covering tillage and potato research, which has done such important work in terms of breeding potatoes, was 1960. 1980, the establishment of the National Advisory and Training Service. And then in 1988, the merger of these two bodies that were there for some time. And so Teagasc now provides both training, research, and education services and advisory services. And this, just the point I want to make is that in any journey, with institutions, there would be a moment for change. And this is just one example of this. And of course, you saw Tara McCarthy of Bord Bia, another, I think, excellent institution. My basic point is, I suppose, that over time, Ireland has managed to put in place a set of institutions relating to the development of the agri-food sector, which I think are absolutely top class. And other countries will need to invest similarly in institutions. They won't be the same models, but they need to, institutions are important. This is the encouragement of the private sector. And I'll just take a couple of these companies, partly because they're from the same part of the world as I'm from, in North County Dublin. Country Crest, Michael Hoy. My parents were great friends of his parents. Michael has a company now that employs 420 people. Sam Denigan, another great company, employs 700 people. Kyo's employs over 400 people. And these are all companies that have developed in the course of a generation through inspirational leadership. And it's the sort of thing that, you know, in a sense, you could go back to the days of the late 60s with North Dublin Growers, where it worked and it didn't work. But I mean, it provided some of the, if you like, almost a seedbed for enterprise that was later developed with companies like this. I want to talk about the potential that there is for the Irish potato sector to connect with, particularly with Africa. And here we have a partnership between Vita, who you've seen around the last couple of days, Teagasc, and the Irish Potato Foundation. And they have put together a model of partnership, a model of collaboration for 6 African countries, which I think has tremendous potential. And I would hope that perhaps this conference, this Congress here in Dublin, could maybe serve as a basis for a re-examination of the link between Irish aid and this idea to make sure that Irish collaboration and partnership with African countries can get underway and can be boosted over the coming years. And this is my final slide. And it's really trying to pull together the conclusions from this experience over the past 60 years. But really, apart from that, I suppose, putting forward these propositions, it's really asking the question, particularly for countries that have a long development path ahead of them. Do some of these lessons from Ireland apply to you? How should they reinterpret it in your country? And these are my conclusions, that along the way, you do need visionaries, peacemakers, statesmen, and stateswomen. It, again, particularly applies in Africa. If Africa is to develop peaceful societies without conflict are a fundamental starting point. Statesmen and stateswomen. If you look at this long period of 60 years, for me, there are 3 critically important points along the way for Ireland. There was, in 1958, the change of economic policy, which reoriented our policy from basically a protectionist policy to facing outward into the world. And that, of course, was the basis for 15 years later, in 1973, when Ireland joined the European Economic Community. And of course, our fate as a country and our political and economic development has been enormously connected with our role in Europe. And then people from outside will know that Ireland also went through a very difficult period from 1968, when what the so-called Troubles started. But that came to an end, hopefully, in 1998 with the Good Friday Agreement. So critically, along the way, there are these big, important decisions where you do require politicians and statespeople to take those decisions and lead the way forward. If we could look back over 60 years and ask, maybe where could we have done things differently? I think this second one is of particular relevance. Women, their status, the need for role models with women, the need to get rid of patriarchy. This is definitely of relevance to many developing countries. That question of the status of women really should be focused on because that is an absolutely foundation stone of development. Referring back to Paddy Kavanagh, Listen to your poets and other awkward people. This is important because the nature of a society of people having the freedom to express themselves and be heard and be tolerated and even be appreciated is important. Education. I go back to the basic point about free education from the 1966, 67 onwards. Important, though, to think about education in a much broader sense, not just the formal piece of education, the informal education. This is where an organization like Macra na Firma was so important for us. And it's not just formal university education. The technical and the skills become important. This notion that government, civil society, and the private sector working towards a shared vision of development along with policy consistency, that's one of the key lessons to learn from the Irish experience. The fact that we've had broadly consistent policy on important things like inward investment, on education, on a whole range of things is of critical importance to why this country has prospered as it has. And then the question of institutions. Institutions are really the part of society and the part of societal management that has to be focused on. And then building an enabling environment for the private sector so that families like the Keoghs, the Denigans, and the Hoys can in due course come through if the opportunity arises. And then the last one is this link between the link from local to global. This obviously has to be interpreted in different places, in different countries. In Africa, obviously there are real challenges here. But what you do have in Africa, as of 2 years ago, the establishment of the African Free Trade Continental Association. And that really is the mechanism by which Africa is beginning to trade within itself. It's basically the model that Europe started out on in 1958 with the creation of the common market. And that's what I want to end on. About 3 years ago, I chaired a group for a study for the European Commission called Task Force on Rural Africa. And we acknowledged all the big challenges that Africa has, the demography, the climate, et cetera, et cetera. But our final conclusion was that Africa is a continent of opportunity. And that's why perhaps any of our African friends who are still here can look to see and just see it's not going to be the same journey that Ireland has traveled. But what is relevant is that over a 50 or 60-year period, extraordinary things can happen. If the right policy is in place, if peace can be established, and we work towards a common goal. Andy, that's it.
Well done, Tom. Thank you very much. Now we know that the potato is well embedded in Irish culture as well as Irish history. Mind you, for those who may or may not know, I'm not exactly sure how much Luke Kelly was associated with the potato, but we do know that he was well associated with the institution that you will be visiting later tonight as a little beverage. So, Tom, thank you very much for that, and what a fitting way to end the conference. We're now, according to my programme, moving into the red zone, which effectively is closing the conference and getting ready for the next one. But I beg your patience for 1 minute odd between here and there, because I want, as the main person that has been in front of you for all of the time, I want to thank all of the speakers that spoke at the plenary sessions, that spoke at all the sessions, for the effort you've put in on behalf of the Congress. Those who produced posters, often neglected, unseen and unmentioned, but without that element of science coming directly to you, the delegates, it may be or may have been a lesser conference. So thanks to you all. I want to thank all the keynote personnel all around the RDS complex who brought the sound and the vision perfectly to us in every hall for the duration of the 3 days. For that, folks, thank you all very much. I'm not sure where Rachel is, but if she's not here, pass that on to Rachel and crew as well. I want to thank the RDS for the facilities, the royal facilities in no uncertain terms that they provided us with for all of the different functions that have taken place, and also those who will host the various events tomorrow, all of which help to complete the experience of the Congress for those who have attended. I have 3 major thanks just to wrap up with. First, to you, the delegates that have come from local farms here in Ireland to as far away as one can possibly imagine around the globe. Without all of your presence, this would not be and could not be deemed as successful an event as it has been. So thank you all for that. I also want to thank, and this thanks is coming not just from me, but from the many people from Ireland that I spoke to in the hall and over the last few days. A special thanks to the World Potato Congress for allowing this Congress to come to Ireland. I know it's not just quite as simple as that, but it means an awful lot to Irish people to have a Congress here of world status in a small island on the edge of Europe, facing into the Atlantic. It gives people reason for continued belief and involvement in the industry that they're involved in. Finally, I want to thank the organisers of the event. In particular, I will say the Irish Potato Federation, who acted as the main conduit to secure the fact that you're all here with the World Congress. And while there are many people involved in the Congress and many people other on the side, like so many people from Teagasc that helped to make all of this happen, to put together the sequence of presentations that helped everything to make sense and for you to build on and build from. I hope you'll forgive me if I can single out Michael Hoey as being the one who was a major driver for it. So, Michael, you might just stand. I know they know you. The rest of us in Ireland appreciate what you have done in this regard. And the final name I want to mention is a person, again, who you've seen on first day, and that's Liam Glennon, who chaired the committee that helped to make everything happen in such a professional way and to keep it steered and to be able to ebb and flow with the likes of me in terms of the changes that happened. Liam, thank you very much on behalf of everybody at the conference. You might stand as well, Liam, in case that there's anybody who doesn't recognise you. Yeah, no, you won't get away with that. Chris is here. Okay, that finishes my stint. I now want to call on John Gilliland from Vita Ireland to begin the process of the ending and closing of this Congress. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody. I'm a forester by background, and nobody told me that the World Potato Congress could be such fun. Meeting old friends, making new friends, discovering new information, and eating good food. I'm here to introduce the video that we're going to present. I'm part of the organizing committee for the World Potato Congress that's comprised of representatives from the Irish Potato Federation, the Irish Forum for International Agricultural Development, Teagasc, and myself representing the development sector. I do have to take the opportunity before I continue just to thank members of the Irish Potato Federation for their continued support for potato programs in Africa. About a year ago, Romain Cool suggested that maybe we could produce a short video that would mark the occasion of Ireland hosting the WPC. And we accepted that challenge. Shortly, Romain will talk about the Dublin Declaration, and we're attempting to incorporate that message into our video. To me, if there is one word that captures that message, it is collaboration. It's finding that sweet spot where business, science, and development come together in real and genuine partnership. There are some really exciting and emerging initiatives, small and large, around the world that we could have looked at to illustrate this. So where could we start? We decided to use examples that are being driven by some Irish organizations in Africa that demonstrate the business opportunities, the benefits, and the impact that collaboration can have across the potato value chain. So I hope you enjoy this short video as much as we have had in putting it together. Thank you.
Dublin, the proud host to the World Potato Congress, the international flagship for the global potato sector. The potato crop has long been associated with Ireland, providing nutritious food for generations of Irish people and helping in the development of a vibrant agri-business sector, which has helped create employment and generated wealth in rural communities. Our history in Ireland is intertwined with this crop. Many generations ago, Irish missionaries helped to introduce the widespread use of potatoes in Africa. Over time, the potato then became known in that continent as Irish potatoes. We must apologise to Peru for claiming them as ours. The potato is a remarkable crop. It is the world's third most consumed food. It's an incredibly versatile crop, adapted to multiple climates and grown across the globe in most latitudes. It is highly nutritious and produces more calories per hectare than rice, wheat, or maize, using less water in less time. Over the last 20 years, the consumption of potatoes in developed countries has declined. Yet, consumption has been steadily increasing in developing countries. The potential for growth in these developing economies is still untapped. These countries are seeking meaningful technology transfer and wealth creation models. Success at industrial scale or small enterprise can best succeed through partnership. An opportunity exists for businesses to thrive while supporting a transformational change in the livelihoods of millions of poor households. This can be achieved through increased productivity, profitability, and sustainability across the potato value chain. The creation of sustainable potato value chains requires joined-up thinking that brings together business, science, and development to deliver for farmers and consumers. One example of such a partnership is the IPM Potato Group venture in Kenya.
My name is Sean Owens and I work for IPM Potato Group. IPM began working in Kenya in 2017. We set up the joint venture Kirinyaga Seeds with Kevian Foods to produce certified seed potatoes for the Kenyan market. From the outset, we recognized the need to collaborate with different stakeholders to build the value chain from seed production all the way through to delivering for the final consumer. Working with organizations such as IFDC, Irish Aid, GIZ and Calro, they've all been essential partners for us to develop our business in Kenya. Kenya and the wider East African region offer many opportunities for potato businesses like ours to work with stakeholders to offer solutions for small-scale farmers.
My name's Henry Keegan. I work for Kirinyaga Seeds Company. And Kirinyaga Seeds Company is a joint venture between IPM Potato Group and Kevian Foods Limited. This is a partnership that was formed way back in 2017, and it was to help meet the demand for seed potatoes in Kenya. Potatoes are second most important food crop in Kenya after maize. Many small-scale farmers are unable to access certified seeds. We delve in with working with farmers. We go all the way. Apart from selling the seeds, we also try to give advice on how to grow potatoes in the right way, do soil preparation, and show them step by step on what they need to do to improve their yields.
Haya, mimi naitwa Lucy Kagendo. Mimi ni mkaaji wa eneo hii ya Timao, nikiwa mkulima wa viazi. Mabadiliko iko kidogo kidogo, hasa kwa mvua inanyesha mvua mingi sana kwa muda mfupi, alafu inafuata na kiangazi kwa muda mrefu. Kabla ya Kirinyaga kukuja kwa hii eneo ya Timao, tulikuwa na changamoto mingi sana, hasa kwa kupata mbegu ya quality ya kupanda. Tumejifunza mapato mingi kutokana na Kirinyaga, hasa kwa preparation ya mchanga kwa shamba, ambayo inatufanya tuwe na tuwe tunapata mapato mingi sana, hasa tukienda upande mwingine wa kutumia drip irrigation. Wametufunza hiyo sana na tukajua jinsi ya kutumia maji kidogo badala ya maji mingi.
IPM have been active in other parts of East Africa. We've been working with Vita to introduce new varieties and certified seeds to Eritrea. Vita as an NGO have a footprint on the ground in Eritrea, and they've been a catalyst to develop a local seed potato sector.
My name is Futsum Brang Gabrameskel. I'm a PhD Wallace Scholarship from University of College Dublin in Chagas. My work or my title is the development of a roadmap for functional and sustainable seed processing in Eritrea. This is a kind of guidelines, just it's an input or which guides, the local stakeholders, to work together, and also it can also help us, to create, networks and partnership between the local stakeholders and the international organizations, like maybe it could be science, like the universities, like the SEEP, and also development organizations and the business areas like IPM, and also like donors, AU, IFAD, and so on. Yeah.
There are many more examples of excellent work from different organizations across the world, working to improve the livelihoods of small-scale farmers. The International Potato Centre has been at the forefront of this work for many years, filling the gap for farmers who have been left behind, unable to access quality seed or improved varieties.
If farmers have a small piece of land, they are better off if they grow potatoes than other crops. Potato is rich in micronutrients, and it's sometimes the only food available to the farmers before the harvest of grains. Farmers don't use quality seed. Because of this, potato production in Ethiopia does not meet its full potential. Quality declared seed is a concept that was developed by FAO and the SEP. It is clean seed. It's produced from tissue culture, greenhouses, then it goes one-time multiplication in the field. That gives you basic seed.
Collaboration is key to developing potato value chains in emerging markets, bringing research, business, and the development sector together to benefit farmers and consumers. The Irish Potato Coalition is another partnership example. This is a collaborative platform for shared learning, bringing together practitioners from scientific research, agribusiness, and the international development sector, all for the benefit of potato farmers across African countries. This Congress brings together business, research, and a growing cohort from the development sector. The 2022 Dublin Congress has a call to action. The profile and benefits of the potato must be enhanced. Best practice must be championed to the benefit of farmers and consumers. New partnerships must be forged between business, science, and development. The future for the potato sector in developing countries is full of opportunity. Let's work together to realise that potential.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this declaration needs no introduction anymore. You've got the message from Tom Arnold with examples of his experience, his vision, and his tools to create a basis for people in the developing world to live in. We've got the video which was made by Vita and is illustrating the route we plan to go with this declaration. And it's up to me to tell you what the declaration looks like and why we made it. To make things clear, World Potato Congress, it has already been mentioned before, has a strategic agenda, and that plan pushed us in a direction that we would not only work for the developed world, not only for the countries and the society on the road to development, but for both of them at the same time, which is very ambitious, because a lot of marketing lessons, heard it perhaps here also, said, yeah, you have to focus on one thing only. Well, we've tried to focus on one thing only, and that's a potato. And that could be the solution for a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, this Declaration of Dublin is not something I have been making on my own. On the contrary, this is a work of a group of people, and I would like to thank especially André De Vaux, who will become new director and replace me in the board of World Potato Congress soon. Also, of course, our future vice president and president, Peter van der Zeek, who has been working and advising a lot, and also John Gilliland and the team of Vita, who made this whole possible. So, World Potato Congress Incorporated said, yes, we want to strengthen the message, a message which we have already brought before to the world. I just reflect to the Congress in Cusco, where we have launched a toolbox and where the first ideas to continue that work has been put forward. And the collaboration we had, just like the Irish example we had, with other NGOs in other parts of the world, in Asia, in South America, where projects, even here in the hall, you could meet people that were active in this project. And by the way, again, I would like to thank the Irish Ministry of Agriculture for the funding they did to get a lot of delegates from these countries here to this Congress. And I've been talking to some of them, and you can see gratitude, but you can also see eagerness in their eyes to go back home and to start working. And this is what we want to achieve and what our goals are. I have this. So, let's come to business, our network for the developing world. Why are we trying to set up this project and to continue to work on it? Well, as a matter of fact, and I said it already in my opening remark, we want to advance the SDG agenda through the potato. That's very ambitious. Also, the DG of FAO referred to it. Very ambitious. But we have to be very ambitious because we see that the world population will grow up to 9.7 billion by 2050. There is a need for 70% more food. I thought that Chu Jung-yu referred to the fact that we could double our production of potatoes. Not enough to achieve that goal. So potatoes have to be part of a solution. Challenge, the climate change. I think in 2 years' time, we will probably focus more on the issue, not because the climate will have changed by then more and rapidly than now, but we will be in a country where even politics have changed dramatically because of the choice of the people to focus on that issue. We also need an increased productivity to reduce rural poverty. Still today, millions of smallholder farmers worldwide are needed. They have to create food security. They have to climb out of poverty and engage in an active value chain leading to job and wealth creation. I have also been lucky once to assist to a European EU-African conference, and I met a lot of people, ministers, but also farmers and people from NGO active in that. It was an activity in Rome, and Tom, you referred to it. You learn a lot about that, and you see that all these elements are on the table. And now it's time to move to action, and that's also why we, as WPC, want to contribute. and have a declaration related to Dublin because of this wonderful city, because of its tradition and history on potatoes, the fight against the famine, something which we are now seeing again if you look what is happening in some parts of Africa. Perhaps if you haven't seen it, but the images are cruel already, and the future doesn't look bright at all. So the challenges are there. And why and how do we think that we can move on? Well, the Declaration of Dublin contains 4 pillars to make things easy. 4, not too much. And we have found a potato with 4 fingers on each hand. It's very convenient if you find that one on the internet. The first pillar, which we see, is that we have to enhance profile and benefit of the potato. We have to stress that the power of potato-based systems is crucial to make a difference. We have to focus on feeding, we have to explain and to illustrate that we have to feed people in a healthy way. We have to consider the population growth in Africa, South America, and Asia. I think the stats were shown about the growth of the population on the planet. It's there where it's going to happen. Europe will have, on the longer term, less people, but there they will double and more than that. And this has to be reflected in national agricultural policy and planning. New partnerships must be forged. That's our second pillar. We can address 2 factors to meet challenges and utilize emerging opportunities. The first one is research partnerships. It has already been said, partnerships are crucial. You cannot do this on your island, as Tom has illustrated. We have to intensify and adopt to support methods to overcome production challenges and climate effects for rural communities. We have to develop partnerships to increase access to clean seed, productivity, and value chain development by the private sector. There are requirements to achieve this. The economic levers for rural communities in developing countries. We have to find investment capital into professional potato projects. Raise awareness of entrepreneurship. In a lot of African countries, young people don't want to be a farmer. They want to be an agricultural entrepreneur. It makes a difference. And we have to go for collaboration to create new value chains. This was the second pillar. The third pillar, it's about best practices. Tom Arnold referred to the experience in Ireland, how this country has stood up, how it became stronger, and it created a good society for people and for families to live in. You can't copy it. But there are best practices everywhere about growing potatoes, about storing them, about marketing them. All these elements have to be brought on the agenda. And that's why we pick up again what is good. You don't have to reinvent. The WPC Toolbox. For those who haven't seen it, I invite you to go to our website. On the website, you will find a page on the Toolbox. The Toolbox is very simple. It's just a guideline for new projects, for NGOs, for private companies, for authorities, to see how things can be put together, how you can move on to the next level. And don't follow the guideline as it is a Bible. It is not. It's a package of ideas, and you can start somewhere in the middle, but some of them will be, you need to pick them up, otherwise your project cannot succeed. So that toolbox is back on the table. Because that toolbox is an instrument also to share that best practice information. Collaboration between individuals and groups, corporate social responsibility, providing quality planting material through equitable service supply systems, offering farm management and sustainable crop production technologies in collaboration with R&D entities. Reduce food losses, even there on every stage, reduce food losses along the potato value chain and creating better storage capacity to achieve this. That toolbox, to conclude, is going even further. It is also focusing on extending marketing assistance, including quality, promotion, market access, added value, processing, innovation, more efficient production, packaging. And I can tell you, I've been talking to some of the NGOs and some of the people that are working in the projects in South America, in Peru, in Ecuador, in projects in African countries. And I can tell you, there has been already a lot of advance in everything. You have been trying also chips originating from these small entities, and the quality of the product is extraordinary, and it is unique. It is of native varieties. We don't have that here, so there is a capacity even to look beyond the local borders, and these are just examples where that next step has been achieved. Let's come to the fourth and last pillar of the Dublin Declaration. Yes, we believe that World Potato Congress can play a role in this changing world, and it's changing faster than ever, as we all said and see every day. WPC has to play a catalyst role, bring stakeholders in the potato value chain together by launching new initiative and using its global network. I'm referring to the webinar series, where also developing or issues related to developing countries have been put on the agenda and got a lot of viewers. Don't forget, people in Africa and everywhere in the world and farmers have access to social media, to internet. For them, it's more, even sometimes, more accessible than for farmers in our own countries here in the West, who rely to older techniques of journals and magazines. The International Potato Day, we had hoped a little bit that Xu Dongyu would mention, yes, the International Potato Day will be starting that day. He hasn't, but we know, and that's also one of the reasons he was here with a large delegation, that FAO is supporting the initiative, which has been launched by Peru and heavily supported by Ireland and 4 other countries. So we believe that that International Potato Day, by definition, will appear on the agenda of journalists, of people somewhere, and say, what's happening today? Oh, it's International Potato Day. Why do we have an International Potato Day? And by definition, it will raise attention for that product and for what's happening. And I can imagine that a radio station or a television station going out to do something on potatoes in Kenya or in Ethiopia or in Peru will have a total different approach than when it goes out here in Ireland. That's the richness of such an initiative. Regional collaboration, I think the word collaboration is popping up everywhere. And that's why we believe, as an organization, as an NGO, that World Potato Congress also today, here, the last days, tomorrow, this evening, we are strengthening that collaboration day by day, bringing people together, making potato professionals, potato friends. And last but not least, we also see a specific role for sustaining partners. A lot of the issues we mentioned are supported by private companies which are supporting the activities of World Potato Congress. And to finalize this Declaration of Dublin with its 4 pillars, we also want to launch a new initiative. First of all, let's conclude and repeat the 4 pillars. Profile and benefits of the potato, new partnerships, best practices to be shared, and the role of WPC. And to move on with that project, because it will be available, it will be on our website, it will come back in the communication and also probably on our webinars. But to advance that information, we are also starting up an initiative to work with WPC potato ambassadors. Potato ambassadors are people that have a big heart for potato. Potato ambassadors are people that can, in their activity field, daily life, profession, proclaim what we have been saying in our declaration. How important, how nutritious potatoes are, how they can make a difference. And we were very lucky, we are very proud also, to be able to present to you today our 2 first World Potato Congress potato ambassadors. And these are the guys. I don't have to bring them on stage. You've met them already on stage. The first one is Tom Arnold. We just met him. And his presentation was also already a clear indication that he believes also that potato can make a difference. And we have been talking with Tom, and you have heard it, and I'm pretty sure that in his field of activities, he has a lot of opportunities to refer to the potato as being part of the solution. And we hope that he can bring people together and where necessary also make the difference. And we are pretty sure that he not only promised us to do so, but we are sure that he will do so. Thank you, Tom, for being our first ambassador. And the second one, you have seen him already yesterday on screen. He wanted to be here, by the way. Really, he said, if I can, I will come over to Dublin. I want to know more about the potato because I'm a big fan of potatoes, but I don't know too much. But I've been talking with him a lot during Zoom sessions, and I'm not only a supporter of him. Okay, I admit I can't wear his jersey. There's a little practical problem. But I can tell you, he's really a very nice guy. He's a very addicted guy when you talk about potatoes. We were talking about recipes and exchanging recipes from Latvia. He's living in an area close to a chip factory in Latvia. He talked about insects. He knew much more than I thought. So sometimes he knew more than I did, which is also very nice because you like to learn every day. But Tom Skewnes accepted also to become ambassador. And I can tell you, he's active on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter under his own name. And you will see that he is sharing information and talking a lot about potatoes. And you will see also that his supporters from all over the world address him as, hey, potato man, how are you doing? So he accepted also to be our second ambassador, and in the sportive world, try to communicate. And that's why also he said yesterday, and he confirmed that, when the presentation was made about fueling your body with potatoes, he said, can I look at it? Can I have it on a screen? And we arranged, thanks to the technical team, that he was able to do so. And it's just illustrating that he wants to do more. And we are so happy to have him as the second ambassador of our program. So, the Dublin Declaration, at this moment he cannot join us because he's on his bicycle, I guess. He's training for the Tour de France. Anyway, we are so lucky to have these 2 persons. We are so proud also that in this framework we are able to present to you the Declaration of Dublin. And we hope that also in Ireland you advance with it. You can make step forwards. We will try to do the same with our friend NGOs, with our partners, with our sustaining partners, but also with our associations in which we have a partnership to continue to work like that. We'd like to thank you a lot, and I would like to thank especially everybody who is here and who has contributed, that also this aspect, before closing the Congress, is under the spotlight, because it's part of the potato family, and it's one of the big objectives. Thank you very much. And I guess we will hopefully hear more about that at the kangaroo party, which you have been invited on by Descartes. Start learning to jump, ladies and gentlemen, because you will have to jump there. Anyway, it is a great honor now also to invite Nigel Crump, representing the Australian Potato Growers Association, to talk to you a little bit about their plans to get you invited and to give you an S possibly, if it's possible, good congress than you did in Ireland. Nigel, you have the floor.
Okay, did everyone have a great conference? Oh, come on, you got to do better than that. It's the end of the evening. Did everyone have a good conference? I can't hear the people at the back. Did they have a good conference? Right, well, I'm going to thank, firstly, Liam and his team for an excellent conference. I think it's been fantastic. But I'm also going to invite you to a party down under. And as Roman said, learn to jump, learn to kiss a koala. You've actually got some koalas to practice on in your pack. But on a serious side, our industry is excited to host the 2024 World Potato Congress. And you'll see our production systems. We have a great potato system. We grow in a very dry continent in Australia. Our production systems are mostly irrigated, so there's a lot of different production systems to see. We have a lot of R&D. Our seed certification schemes are world best. You'll see all that down under. We grow, as I said before, in a very dry environment, but it's one of the best production systems around the world, down under. And so please come down and see us. We're going to have the event in the Adelaide Convention Centre. The Adelaide Convention Centre is right in the downtown of Adelaide, so it's a walking distance to all the hotels, the restaurants. There's free public transport around the city. And this is the conference centre, just to show you a little bit of where it's going to be. It's a dedicated convention centre. But there's a walking distance, 5 minutes. You're down into the hotel districts, into restaurants, world-leading restaurants, food bars, within a short distance. And you can actually see that the city, it has world-leading restaurants, great food, great wine, great beer. Not many koalas downtown though, but you can go around and see them in the zoos and whatnot. But short walking distances, we can fly around the city and go down to other parts where there's, again, excellent bars, cafes, award-winning food, wine, all within a short walking distance to the venue. So really easy to get around. Great, wonderful city. The city of churches, Adelaide is referred to, a lot of churches in downtown Adelaide. The other thing you'll see as we fly around here, there's a lot of parks and it's very open environment. So it's a very friendly city and it's excited to host the WPC in 2024. So you can see a snapshot of the convention centre in Adelaide. The hotels, we've already started planning the accommodation, and as I said, they're a very short distance, within 5 minutes of the venue, but very cheap, and we've got a whole range. There's over 6,000 hotel accommodation venues in Adelaide waiting for you. And if you keep a check on your little program on your kangaroo card, you'll actually see there'll be information about booking hotels and that fairly soon. And finally, I'll just show you a little bit, because a lot of people talk about Australia. How many people want to go to Australia? Ah, beautiful, that's what we like to see. It's everyone's bucket list, eh? So come down, say g'day, because this will give you a snapshot of some of the things you can do while you're also looking at your love of potatoes. You can fill out your bucket list and actually come down under and have a look. So I'll pass on this little video.
A dream that someday I would just fly away. And I always knew I couldn't stay. So I had a dream that I'd just fly away, away. Oh, 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 I fly away. Oh, 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 I fly away. 'Cause I had a dream that someday I would just fly away. And I always knew I couldn't stay. So I had a dream that I'd just fly away, away, away.
So remember your bucket list. We look forward to having a party with you and the potato and the kangaroo and the koala bear. Come down, please, to the WPC meeting in Adelaide, 23rd of June. So we'll see you all there. Thanks, guys.
Stay with us, stay with us. Sometimes you have traditions, and traditions sometimes are good to be kept. And one of them is a tradition which started in 1993 in Prince Edward Island. And that's the fact that when another country hosting the next World Potato Congress is known, and at the end of the Congress, where the Congress has been held, the 11th one here in Dublin, at that moment we have a flag. World Potato Congress has a flag, and it is also a tradition that the flag is being handed over from the current organizer to the next one. So I would like to invite your hero who made this conference possible, Liam Glennon, to hand over the flag to Nigel Crump.
Thank you, Romain, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, I think, at this stage has been well and truly thanked. But there's one person that Andy didn't thank because he couldn't, and that was himself. And I would like, please, on behalf of the local organising committee, to thank Andy for doing a fantastic job, along with the AV team here on my left, because while we were happily talking about the changing world of the potato, Andy and the AV team had to deal with the reality of the changing world of the WPC program, which was constantly moving. I think in 3 days we had to change 3 speakers, and it was in no way due to that's no way the fault of the speakers. Because of flight problems, they just couldn't get here. I think one of them actually spent a full day in Amsterdam airport and still didn't get away. Now, I'm going to hand over this flag in a minute, but before doing so, I'm not going to do this on my own. I would like to ask Team Ireland to come up here, please, and we do this together as we've worked as a team all along. So I'd like to have up on stage, please, Michael, Breda, Dennis, Dan, Shay, and another Michael Hennessy, Lorcan if you're down there, Brian, John Gilliland is here anyway. So could we have you up on stage, please, because, and we'll do this together as a team. One minute and we'll have it done.
Looking forward to seeing you down there.
So, believe me when I say this, it gives me the greatest of pleasure to hand over this flag to Nigel like of you, and some small measure of relief as well to hand this over. And that we just all I'd like to say that we'll see you all in Australia at the 12th World Potato Congress in 2024. Now, Nigel, if you step, we'll unfurl this together. In the middle, okay.
May I ask you to wait for 1 more minute, please? Only 1 minute, please. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Team Ireland. Great job. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear potato friends, you're leaving, but I want to ask you 1 minute to stay with me, just to make clear that we have come to an end. This is the closure, and the flag has been handed over. We have already, some people are at this moment on the telephone buying the tickets. Very good, continue to do so. We have come to an end of this remarkable journey through the potato value chain in Dublin during the 11th World Potato Congress. A journey that has started 5 years ago and resulted in this Congress that even the COVID pandemic could not stop. Please allow me to thank all sustaining partners, sponsors, speakers, staff, the teams of Chegas, Keynote, ANSMIT, RDS, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture of Ireland, Board BIA, Vita. Our moderator has been said, Andy Doyle, for all their efforts to make this Congress possible. Our special appreciation goes out to the partner of WPC incorporated in this project, the Irish Potato Federation, chaired by Michael Hoy. We know each other a long time, Michael, but it was another surprise about quality work which you have with your team realized. They have shown from day one full confidence in this project, and the collaboration with the local organizing committee and WPC has been intensive and successful. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention one person on whose tiny shoulders a lot of work has been put. Liam Glennon, chair of the local organizing committee, has done an incredible job, and I would like to give him, please, a big hand of applause. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the 11th World Potato Congress in Dublin has been of a high quality, probably one of the best ever. With all participants being warmly welcomed with the legendary Irish hospitality, experiencing the authentic atmosphere of this historical RDS complex. After 2 years in isolation, this event has allowed us to meet and embrace again our colleagues and friends. Didn't that feel good? The rich program of interesting and inspiring presentations guided us through the changing world of the potato. Wasn't it a great experience we had during these 3 fascinating days, and probably tomorrow as well? We have learned that potato can be fuel for athletes. Well, I'm sure that this Congress has fueled you up for the 2 next years. I'm also sure that we can all mark in our agenda the days to meet old and new potato friends in June 24 in Adelaide. And this is also my last day as President CEO of World Potato Congress. I would like to thank, therefore, my board, if I still can use that word, of directors and International Advisors Committee, as well as our excellent management by Brian and Jocelyn during all these years of collaboration. World Potato Congress has proven with its 11 congresses, the webinar program, the WPC Toolbox, the Declaration of Dublin, and the new WPC Potato Ambassadors, and hopefully, as from 24 onwards, every year an International Potato Day recognized by the United Nations, that this organization has indeed made a difference to the global potato value chain. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants of this Congress, your numerous presence is the reason of being for our NGO. But I also would like to invite companies that believe that WPC needs to continue to develop this unique role in this diverse potato world, to contact our manager, Brian Douglas, to become sustaining partner of our organization. We need you to do better, day after day, year after year. I've retired now from this exciting, sparkling sector that, just like the city of New York, never sleeps. It has been a pleasure to serve for 32 years, Belgapom, Europotat, UPA, and the World Potato Congress. I would like to thank you for that opportunity and for the confidence. Wish you all the best, and wish you also a safe return back home. And of course, my successor as President CEO for the next 6 months, John Griffin, and the Vice President, Peter van der Zaak, I also wish them a lot of success, together with the new board and International Advisors Committee. I wish you a great evening at the Guinness Storehouse, an exciting trip during the technical tours of tomorrow, and safe trip back home, as I said. Long live the potato. Long live the potato people. Thank you very much. By the way, if you want to go to the storehouse and you don't know how to get there, you've got this card which will allow you to go in. On the back of the card, you also have the information on the bus transfers. Be on time, take a bus, otherwise you have to walk, 1 hour walk if you want, no problem, or a taxi. We wait for you there at 8 o'clock this evening. See you in the Guinness Storehouse. Thank you.